7 times. I am a flood across a plain. I am a wind on a deep lake.
Welcome to Radio Free Pagans with your host, Rosanna Tufts. The following program is intended for educational purposes only and not intended to diagnose or treat any disease. If you find yourself having aha moments as a result of listening to this story, please do the responsible thing and consult with your own medical or mental health practitioner. This program is being simulcast on both YouTube and Spotify, so you have a choice that best suits your own learning preference. Thank you. Hi, I'm Rosanna Tufts, and welcome to Was It Autism All Along? If this topic doesn't sound at first like it's related to the modern resurgence of paganism and nature mysticism, stick around because there might be more overlap than you think. I don't know whether any peer-reviewed research studies exist that indicate whether neurodivergence in general, and autism spectrum in particular, are more prevalent as a percentage in the pagan-identified population compared to the general population. If I'm wrong about that, if such research does exist, please let me know. You can private message me on Facebook or use the contact form at my astrology website, wisdomofthecosmos.com. Now, despite the background behind me, this is not an astrology class. I chose this cloth because the rays aiming out from my head turn out to be a pretty good visual metaphor for how this neurology might work. I'm going public with this now with the aim of raising awareness of the lifelong struggles faced by people who have this hidden disability, in the hope of making life easier for both me and them, and in the hope that normal people will come to understand that their expectations and attitudes about how autistic people should behave may be unrealistic at best, cruel at worst, and how to do better by the autists in their lives, some of whom may not even know themselves of their condition. I claim to be an authority only on my own experience, not anybody else's experience. But you might hear some uncanny parallels either to yourself or to someone you know. So what led me to get started on this topic? If you've been following me for a while, you know that I am recently emerged from a year that involved a cancer diagnosis, full hysterectomy, 6 rounds of chemotherapy, and a lot of emotional processing, based on the idea from traditional Chinese medicine that long-standing unresolved emotional issues determine where cancer is most likely to develop. You can read more about that in a Substack article I wrote called Can Sexual Abuse Cause Cancer? Dated September 27th, 2022. I have come back from uterine cancer metastasizing at stage 4B. That's the 3rd worst case scenario, surpassed only by recurring and terminal. I am now in complete remission. My hair is growing back. Yay! And it's curly. Wow! People tell me I look much better than I have any right to, considering what I've been through. But the revelations from my history are still ongoing, as I continue to find words for feelings that didn't have words before. all in efforts to purge my psyche and ensure the cancer never comes back. A few months ago, not too long after I'd finished the chemo, I was at a maker space with a friend who sometimes helps me execute projects that are slightly beyond my light carpentry skill set. After completing one of those projects, over dinner, we were comparing notes about the various weirdnesses of our childhoods. Although you would never think it, because he's such a scholarly and erudite man, he confessed to me that he had been diagnosed with autism by a doctor with the correct set of letters after their name, and suggested that I, too, might be on the autism spectrum. In all my years, that thought had never once occurred to me.
Me? How can I be autistic? I'm so eloquent. I'm such a good presenter.
But then, so was he. I asked him, "What makes you think that?" He observed that I had a problem with intensity regulation. You will get really, really enthusiastic about something, or really, really angry about something, and it happens so suddenly that you don't realize you're knocking people over. I could have been majorly offended and stormed out right there. But because I consider this man to be a good friend, I didn't. He said neurotypical people seem to have an infinite number of settings to calibrate how they come across. Neurodivergents have far fewer. And I thought I had done so much work on myself to cultivate that calibration. I can calibrate my voice just fine when I'm on mic, and have the luxury of time for do-overs.
Maybe he'd witnessed my anger during one of my rants about homophobia?
But I recognized that I still tend to be rather quiet and shy in a group conversation. But when I have an observation of my own to make, I'll abruptly burst in and say it really fast, or much louder than I intend to. It's like my voice just gets away from me. I thought this was a habit born of a need to express my thoughts and needs before anybody else has a chance to invalidate them and demand I shut up. A legacy of having been brought up by an autocratic mother. Nobody had ever suggested the possibility of autism until now. Why now? At time of this airing, I have just turned 64. I've made it this far in life. Cancer failed to kill me. So why might I want to have confirmation of suspected autism?
Why have I always been such an odd duck? Weird, quirky, eccentric.
That's what I've been called, but why have neither I nor anyone else been able to define exactly what is it about me, despite my most earnest efforts to pass for normal? Because I figure I still have 30 years of life left, and I want to live them to the fullest. I don't want to just sit around as a retiree. I want to make up for past mistakes and finally enjoy some measure of success that had eluded me before, but I haven't understood why. Better late than never, right? And I figure in order to do that, I need to have a clear idea of my true strengths and limitations and why I have them. What situations should I steer clear of, and which should I lean into, purposefully? To be smarter about playing the hand you've been dealt, first you have to know what the hand is. Any future employer or business partner would need to know this, and any future romantic partner too. If this is real, I would be rather like Sir Anthony Hopkins, who wasn't diagnosed until he was 70. In what you are about to hear, I am following a social model rather than a medical model. That way I avoid pathologizing my own experience and also avoid making claims for myself that other people might push back I'm not entitled to make, not being a medical doctor or psychiatrist myself. I will merely state the facts, describe the situations, and say only that those facts tend to point in a certain direction. In this way, I hope that what I've done here turns out to be more effective than how the Australian singer Sia handled it. I hear there's been quite a lot of controversy surrounding that. This program has also been peer-reviewed. I sent an earlier draft to some people who really are autistic and officially diagnosed as such to ensure that I'm not just talking out of my ass. One of them even suggested that getting an official diagnosis at this point might do me more harm than good because of anti-transgender laws that are being passed in certain states that misinterpret research studies that seem to indicate a correlation between autism and trans identity. Not here in Maryland, of course, but if the wrong person becomes president in 24, the risk of such political initiatives being passed on a national basis will become very real. Apparently, the rationale goes like this.
If we prevent autistic kids from getting the care that they need, they'll never get the notion that they might also be trans.
Which should be patently absurd just on its face. Correlation does not equal causation. But the right wing abandoned all semblance of logic and morality years ago. Absolutely no human rights violation is off the table. I may not be a child, but I wouldn't put it past them to legalize employment discrimination against neurodivergent adults. So maybe my cleverest strategy would be to have a gentleman's agreement with a sympathetic employer who understands my strengths profile, while simultaneously maintaining plausible deniability if I'm never diagnosed by an actual doctor. Oh, and if you think I'm doing this just for the attention, please. There is nobody who isn't autistic who wishes they were. In part 2 of this video series, join me on a trip to self-discovery of what led me to figure this out and solve the riddle. I'm Rosanna Tufts. You've been watching Was It Autism All Along? See you in the next video.
Hold steady as you join the chorus if you can.